Hi, I'm ADD, and today we are going to Marie Kondo the hell out of your hard drives. First, you put them in a box, facing up so that you can see them. Then, you take that box and you put it inside of another box. Then, take that same box and you put it inside of another box. Hard drives are like people. It's what's inside that matters. Let's grab a hard drive and I'll show you how it's done. Today, we're going to go over how to work smarter and faster on your computer if you deal with a lot of different file types. So maybe you feel like this video isn't for you if your clients already like your output and there's like a method to your madness, man. So why should you reorganize your digital life? Even if you already have a system that you feel works for you, there's always room for growth, and it's possible that there are some blind spots in your setup that you aren't aware of yet. So let's say that you're like how I was when I started editing video and your hard drive is a mess. This was totally me a couple years ago, but I didn't notice or care, and I wouldn't have bothered changing my ways had I not been pushed to the limit by going into an industry whose clients required many projects to be edited all at the same time. And since I didn't have a system in place, you don't want to know how many times I found myself digging through my hard drives at 3 a.m. trying to decipher my horrible naming system, or really lack of a system, with my boss falling asleep at his desk asking me how much longer the video was going to take. Don't let this happen to you, regardless of whether you're a producer, VFX artist, or whatever. Here's what you do instead. The most important thing, surprisingly, is not for the file names to be perfectly accurate. Sure, improving your file names is a good start, but the real lifesaver is having a logical and consistent infrastructure of folders for the files to live in. This might be obvious to some of you who have an inner Marie Kondo guiding you in the ways of digital tidiness. But for me as a 30-year-old space cadet who had just switched industries and needed to juggle more file types at once all of a sudden, this was a life-changing revelation. So how should I organize my hard drives? Most people corral things into folders within folders, kind of like a flowchart that goes from the general to the particular. So let's say you share a hard drive with your little sister. You start with 2 folders with your names. Then maybe your folder opens up into 5 subfolders. A resources folder with your stock sound effects, your lens flares and LUTs and other such assets that can be used across multiple projects. Your side projects folder, your work stuff, the love letters from your ex that you should have deleted 5 years ago but refused to because what if they changed their mind? And a folder with pictures of cats, the latter of which definitely brings you joy, so you're not gonna delete that. But what about the dreaded work folder? Damn, if you open that, then you might bump into some issues. Like you have a folder of videos, some loose images, a folder of PDFs from like 15 different projects, a folder called Premiere, but you just let the program call it the default name, so you have all these untitled things next to a project called My Reel. You open it, it had like missing media, and the pop-up window tells it that some of it's on a different hard drive, and some of them used to be on the downloads folder, but it's not there anymore when you check it. You think maybe it's because you started updating that reel 2 years ago when you still used your mom's computer, so it was probably on her downloads folder. And nobody's happy when you have to hunt down your stuff in your little sister's section of the drive and then accidentally stumble upon her My Horse Prince fanfic, and now you have to go bleach your eyes. Sound familiar? This brings nobody joy. The solution? I got 2 words for you. Folder templates.
So I asked the computer if it had improved me, and it said it didn't know what I was talking about, and that's made me think very carefully.
Do you normally take coffee with your sugar?
What?
Here's how the system works. You make a folder, and you call it Project Folder Template. Then inside, you put all of these folders. And take a moment to look at that beautiful list of folders, because it's the anchor that all of this hinges upon. So here you got like After Effects. Arte opens up into Illustrator. Imagen, that's all the images. Photoshop. Then you get Audio.
CH is character animator projects.
Then you get Data. Data is where I put all the footage. Finales, I never fill this one up because I never think it's finalized.
Musica opens up into 2 folders, Ableton and GarageBand.
Then you get Premiere. Then you get Previos, which is like the previews, and I number them 001, 002. Then you get Renders, which is usually the assets that I've made in After Effects that I later import into Premiere or back into After Effects or anything that I've rendered that is a part of the project. I suggest making a couple copies of project folder template once you're happy with it, in case you accidentally move the content instead of copying it. And that way you'll ensure that you'll always have a copy of the empty template somewhere in your hard drive and you don't have to keep making these from scratch. The next step is to create a folder with the name of the client, then a subfolder with the name of the project, and you copy paste the contents of project folder template. Doing this is super helpful because whenever you see this familiar structure, it's like hitting a brick wall. You know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this must be a project folder, so you know what to expect from then on. The final step is probably the hardest, but is super important for all of this to work. No matter what you do, you always remember to take the time to navigate to the right folder whenever you have to dump data, export things, or do anything related to that project. If you mess this up, and trust me, you will mess this up at first, especially when deadlines are tight, just remember to slow down, take your time, and trust that you have a system and that system's got your back. It's not worth trying to save a little bit of time while exporting things willy-nilly. It'll bite you in the ass when you're scrambling around looking for files and the deadline was yesterday. Rest in the knowledge that there's a logical place for everything to be. You might not remember what things are called, but you're sure as hell know where they should be. As soon as things calm down, go through your files, and if you see any stragglers that aren't in their correct location, move them over to the right folder, relabel as necessary, and be ready to relink the media next time you open the project. It can be a pain to do this, but it's totally worth it in the long run and adds to your peace of mind. Also, in the event that you pass on your projects to someone else and they ask for a complete dump of your assets for any given project, you won't be caught with your pants down or with your kilt up if you're Scottish. Shout out to the mastermind behind all of this, Roberto Potamo, the incredibly talented animator, editor, musician who taught me this. I cannot stress this enough. The advice that you just heard in this video is freaking money, because time is money. This system has saved me so much time over the years. I mean, those extra minutes or hours that you spend every day digging through the hard drives, those add up. Not to mention the wear and tear on your body and your mind, considering what happens when you're constantly stressed out and you're sleeping less hours because, those deadlines aren't going to adjust for your inability to find stuff. So, not only will this help you create more time for yourself so that you can focus on what you love doing, which is making things, and enjoying your life outside of work, but also because you never know who else might need your help with this stuff. For example, I once had a client who was at their wit's end because they had to organize more than a decade of a large corporation's digital history. I'm talking more than 10 terabytes of video, raw photos, release documents, contracts, audio, and they had no system in place to find all these things that they needed to work with on a daily basis. The amount of stuff we had to go through was monumental, and yet because I knew how to use Roberto's system here, it slowly became manageable. I enlisted the aid of the lovely Mishi to help me grab the tusks of this data monster, and we came up with a strategy. We simplified the folder template I showed you earlier. The reason it was simpler is that this was for a client who didn't need to organize creative cloud files, just the raw material for their own records. So, we then created an Excel sheet with a detailed description of what the inside of those hard drives looked like. Finally, we made the client a duplicate of the hard drives, and we uploaded everything to the cloud where everyone involved could access it. Working this way was also useful for when I moved into the world of film. I've been working recently on a movie, and since it was my first feature film, I had to adapt my organizational practices to the system the director and producer were already using. We had the additional challenge of having to edit the movie remotely, sending files back and forth between Mexico, the US, and Puerto Rico. Since I had improved my habits by then, I was able to glance at their system, and while it was completely different, it instantly made sense to me. My current folder for that project is a weird hybrid between systems, and although it's far from perfect, it gets me through the night. The core principles stayed the same, and I try to respect their system whenever I upload assets to the cloud. That's it for now, and stay tuned for more episodes in this series. Huge shout out to my predecessor Roberto Potamo for all his kindness and all of his wisdom, and as Marie Kondo likes to say, bye!